What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to learn how to add custom swipe actions to your table view cells. So here's a table view with a bunch of users, and when I swipe over, we've got these three actions here to mute, favorite, and even delete. Not only are we going to take a look at bringing these in, but customizing them and making them functional. So if I hit favorite here, you can see that we favorited Ben over here, and let's say perhaps Amy's getting annoying, so we want to mute Amy, we can do that, and we can even go ahead and delete anybody. So we'll take a look at how to actually customize these actions and make them functional. So if that all sounds good, make sure you start by smashing that like button down below. Hit subscribe if you're new to the channel and into iOS and Swift. That all said, let's get into the video. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started by opening up Xcode and creating a new project. We're gonna stick with the app template under iOS, and I'm gonna call this project Custom Swipe Actions, and you want to make sure your language at the bottom here is set to Swift, and both the lifecycle and interface are UIKit and storyboard respectively. Go ahead and continue, save the project wherever you'd like. I'll toss it onto my desktop here, and we'll jump right into it. So first things first, we want to expand our Xcode window. Let me go ahead and close that right panel while we're at it and jump into the view controller, and I'll also bump up the font size here. So before we actually talk about custom swipe actions, we need a table view. So the table view will actually hold all of our different rows that we can swipe on. So logically, we should create one out here. I'm going to create it programmatically. Feel free to create it in the storyboard, or if you have one in your app already, feel free to use that as well. But we'll go ahead and create one here. I'm not going to do anything fancy. We're just going to register a vanilla table view cell. No custom cells today, just to keep us on track. We'll say the identifier is just cell. And now that we've got this here, we want to make sure we conform to both the delegate as well as the table view's data source. And let's see, we want to go ahead and make sure we add it as a subview. We'll go ahead and assign this guy's delegate as well as its data source. And I'll set a title here to swipe actions. Now we want to give our table view a frame, so we're going to override view did layout subviews. We'll say table.frame is going to be view.bounds. And now we just need some table view functions for the data source. So the two required ones are number of rows. We'll just return 20 for now, just some random number, doesn't really matter. And then we also need cell for row at index path, where we can go ahead and dequeue a cell and just return it. So we'll say table view dequeue reusable cell. So let's see, dequeue, which I can never spell, reusable cell with identifier for index path, ID is cell for index path. I'll go ahead and return it right here, and let's just go ahead and say the text labels text is going to be hello world. And let's go ahead and give this a run in a simulator to make sure we can actually see our table view. Let's see what's going on. We should have this error going away. Let's see if we implemented the correct functions. This one should be cell for row. Looks like we used autocomplete for the wrong one. Cell for row at index path. Go ahead and paste all that stuff in. And what you can go ahead and do is select a simulator here. So we'll go with the 12 Pro Max. And let's see, it looks like autocomplete is giving me a hard time today. We used the wrong one again. Let's try that again. Cell for row at index path. Let's read it. So yeah, we want this first one here. Go ahead and paste that in and give it a run in your simulator to make sure you are seeing your table view. So just bear with it here. All right, let's try that one more time. All right, let's go with the 12 Pro since I had it open already. And there's our simulator, just bear with it. So while that's building here, basically these custom swipe actions allow you to add a lot of convenience for your user. You might be familiar with the simple delete swipe, which is pretty easy to implement. I've got a separate video on it, but what if you wanted more? So in our example here, just like we saw earlier, we're gonna add 3 actions. So we're gonna have a mute, a favorite, and then a delete when I swipe on it. So you can imagine this as like some type of chat application. So we're going to want each of these rows to represent a user, perhaps. So let me go ahead and create a model up here for a user, and we can go ahead and add a name on it, and we can also say favorite. We may want to say is favorite, and we can also say is muted. And let's go ahead and create a bunch of these users as our models here. So I'm going to go ahead and say let users is going to be an array of users. And I'm going to go ahead and add some names in here. So we'll say John Smith. And we're just going to compact map this to a user. So a user we just created up above has a name and all the other stuff. So let's see if I can just have it autocomplete. So it has a name, a is favorite, and a is muted. So I'm going to say name. This is going to be $0. We're going to have a is favorite. We'll say by default it'll be false. And then we'll say is muted will also be false by default. And this should go ahead and create a user for every string that we've got in there and return it. So the reason this is actually complaining is because we don't have an initializer on that class up above. So let's go ahead and pass all that stuff in. So we'll say init, and we want to have a name here and a is favorite, and then finally a is muted. And then in this block, we'll just say self.name is name, self.is favorite is favorite, and finally self.isMuted is muted. And we should see the error up here goes away, and let's see what's going on down here. Looks like we need a comma that I screwed up, so let's go ahead and hit that fix. So we've got that there, is muted is false. This should be a comma, and we don't need that there. And we should be in business, hopefully. All right, so it looks like we are looking good. So now that we have this array, we can go ahead and add a couple more names in here just to make it a little more interesting. So we'll say John, Dan, Ben, Rob, Amy, and Jill. And instead of a hard-coded number here, we're going to say this is users.count, looking pretty good. And the name is going to be the text for each of these. So we'll say this is the users.name. So looking pretty good. So how do we actually get those custom swipe actions, the thing you guys came here to see? So the first thing we want to implement is can edit row. And we want to go ahead and return true here. So this is basically telling the table view we can edit, aka swipe, on any of the rows. And then we want another function for the actual actions. They're actually called edit actions. So if you just type that in, you'll get the function here. So this, if you look at the signature, this function is edit actions for row at index path, and it wants us to return a collection of UI table view row action. And basically we can create as many of those as we want. So here I'm going to go ahead and create just one to start. So we're going to say a delete action is going to be one of these guys. And if you open up the constructor, we're going to say the style is destructive to get the red color. We're going to say the title is delete, and the handler passes in both the action as well as the index path that the swipe occurred on. Now in our case, what we want to go ahead and do is we want to first and foremost remove from users at that position. So here we're going to go ahead and say remove at indexPath.row. Now one thing you might want to do up here is make this array of users a var so we can mutate it, aka remove and add to it. And once we've actually gone ahead and removed, we can go ahead and say self.TableView. We also want to delete, rather, instead of remove. We want to delete a row at the given index path that was swiped on with a animation, and here there's a couple different ones. We want automatic, and now that we've got this here, we can return basically the delete action. So let's go ahead and give this a run and let's see what that actually looks like in practice. So when I swipe on it, we've got this cool delete option here, and of course when I actually do it, it deletes the row. So that's looking pretty good. Let's extend this even more. So here we've got a warning because we're not using this action here. So let's go ahead and underscore that to make it discardable. And if you take a look here, let's see what this is yelling at us about. This is yelling at us is It was deprecated in iOS 13, so we should use a UI contextual action. So you could still use this function. There are new versions of it, but we're going to stick with this one. Most people are probably targeting iOS 13, so if you actually go and change your minimum app version here to 13, and you give this a run again, as well as jump back to your view controller, you'll see that this will go away. Rather, it should be iOS 12, I should call it. If it's anything below 13, and let's see what's going on here. It looks like this one has been deprecated as well, which is all right. So let's go ahead and extend this. So the next thing we want is a totally custom option. So first we're going to say favorite action title. And what we want to do is basically this is going to be a string, and we want to know if the current user is favorited or not. And if they are, we can go ahead and say unfavorite versus favorite. So I'm going to say let user is going to be from our users collection, the thing at the particular row that's being swiped on. And we're going to say the action title here is going to be if user is favorited, we're going to call this unfavorite. Otherwise, we're going to call this favorite. And we're actually going to do something fairly similar for muting and unmuting somebody. So we're going to say mute action title. And if the user is muted, we're going to go ahead and say unmute versus mute. And let's go ahead and also up here in our actual class for a user, we want to go ahead and make the is favorite and the is muted a var so we can update its value when we swipe on this. And now that we've got the titles here, we can actually copy and paste this delete action for the favorite action and the mute action. So this is going to be a mute action. This will be a favorite action. And let's see, what do we want to do here? Now, instead of destructive, we're going to say this is normal. And this is going to be the favorite action title. This one here will be the mute action title. This one will be normal as well. And let's see. Now, instead of deleting a row, what we want to go ahead and do is for the particular user that we have, we want to go ahead and say self.users. At the given position, we want to get there is muted, and we can say toggle, and that'll basically flip whatever that bool value is. And we can do the same thing in here for the is favorite property. And the other thing you might be wondering is how do I actually achieve the color for the actions? You see other apps have like customized colors for different actions. Well, we can actually assign that directly on here. So these have a background color property on them. There's also a background effect. So we're going to use the background color, and we'll say maybe this one is system blue. And let's see, for the mute action, maybe we'll call this one system. Let's see, this should be mute action, not the title. This one will say system, perhaps orange. And then, of course, don't forget to collect those actions in a single array here and drop them in. It's actually also important the order that you put them in. So I'm going to actually first do, we're going to do the mute action first, and then I'll add in the favorite action, and delete will be the rightmost. So go ahead and give this a run. Let's ignore those warnings there. And if we go ahead and swipe it, now you'll notice that we have a delete, favorites in the middle, and mute is all the way to the right. So let's actually see if we need to flip these, because they look like they're not in the order that I wanted. So we'll flip the delete and muted, and we'll see if that corrects the order. So I'll go ahead and swipe these, and that's what I was looking for. So this is pretty common if you, I believe, even swipe in like the standard SMS messaging app, you'll go ahead and figure that out. Now, when we tap on mute, for example, it should have muted, and when we open this up again, if you look at the title, now it's unmute. So I can unmute it, open it up, I can try favoriting it, opening it up. And one thing that might be a little nice for a visual cue in terms of what thing is favorite or muted, in the self row at index path, what we can do is we can say if, we can say cell, or we can just do if the user, let's get the particular user out. So this, we'll say this thing is a user. We'll grab that and prop it up here. We'll say this is user. We'll say if the user is favorited, do this. Otherwise, if the user is muted, do this. Else, we'll go ahead and drop the background color. So we'll go ahead and assign it to be nil. Now, if the user is muted, I'm going to go ahead and say it has a background color of system orange. If the user is favorited, we'll go ahead and stick with system blue. And now what we want to go ahead and do, if you go ahead and give this a run, you'll see by default that nothing has a background color. And when I tap on this, it doesn't actually update. So what gives? Basically, we need to reload the cell at the given position. So here we can say self.TableView, and we can call reload for the rows at the given index path with a fade or automatic animation, whichever one you'd like to stick with. We'll just stick with automatic in our case. And now what you'll notice is after we go ahead and swipe this, it'll change colors because we are actually updating it. So if we hit favorite, look at that, it's blue. I can mute this guy. I can get rid of that. Let's say Amy's being super annoying and I want to mute her. We can do that, and so on and so forth. So this is how you bring in custom actions into your application. So it's pretty easy. You can do it directly through the TableView protocols. And you can see here, here's a warning of that we should be using the new contextual action. This is basically the newer version of it, which looks almost identical. If you do a quick Google search on it, you'll find how to implement those as well. I want to say it's about 99% similar. So there you have it. That's all I had for you guys today. If you enjoyed the video and haven't dropped a like down below, don't forget to do so. It helps out a lot. I also recently uploaded a full free SwiftUI chat series on Skillshare. So if you haven't taken a look, definitely head on over to Skillshare and take a look. And don't forget to subscribe if you're into iOS and have been following along and enjoy my videos. Thanks again for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.